It's very exhilarating because it's like, right, I'm doing this now.
Probably the first firm in East Yorkshire to have a Twitter account. Can't do that bit of work for you because you still owe us from the work we did 3 months ago.
Yeah. So welcome, Andy, to what's now been called the Superfly Sessions. I think it's kind of amalgamated into this kind of podcasty style, which I didn't think would happen, but it has kind of naturally happened. But if you just could introduce yourself. We've known each other for quite a long time now, haven't we, in business as well? So,
yeah, thank you for having me, Nick. Andy Steele, director, owner of 360 Chartered Accountants in Hull. Although we do have offices in York and Wakefield also. This is where we're sat right now, is where we actually started off back in February 2010.
Yeah.
We were in Block B.
Yeah.
Currently in Block A, but we did move over to Block A towards the end of our time here. So yeah, very, very familiar surroundings.
Yeah.
We didn't have a lovely coffee shop.
No, it's changed quite a bit, hasn't it?
When we were here. We did have a little sandwich van in the car park. But yeah, it feels like coming home really when I come here.
A lot changes in 14 years. Well, some things do, some things don't. So in those 14 years, you've built an accountancy firm from just yourself, really, although you had a couple of team members to start off with, to a 20 plus, one of the leading firms in Hull. I think you've got a really good reputation in the area. How the hell did you do that?
Good question. On day one, I think there was two of us on day one. We had a few people join us over the course of the next couple of months, working notice periods, etc. Very exciting times, turning the open sign for the very first time.
It's very exhilarating because it's like, right, shit, I'm doing this now. I have to make this work.
Yeah. I think it's a little bit different to opening a shop, for example, where you stood there just praying that people will walk in.
Yeah.
You know, I did have some clients that I knew would follow me. I had some who I hoped would follow, and you know, many of them did. But yeah, on day one, we had basically no clients, no work to do, an IT system that didn't really work, photocopier that wouldn't print. You know, day one we went into the cloud. The cloud was very, very new back in 2010.
So that was a bit of a competitive advantage for you to some degree, wasn't it? Because you thought, right, might as well just start as a means to go on type of thing.
Yeah, I think when you start a new business, you've got a bit of a blank canvas, haven't you? You can learn from your experiences, wherever you've worked previously. You know, what worked well, what didn't work, what new technology can we embrace. So yeah, there was all sorts of, you know, hardware, software, systems and processes that we were able to implement that perhaps when you're trying to put them into an established business is a little bit more tricky, because you've got data or paper files or whatever it is to sort of transition over. So, and
you've got your team who are already used to a way of working, and then you've got to try and change them into other processes. I think that's quite difficult.
And clients as well.
Yeah.
Clients or customers are used to dealing with certain systems, processes, IT, etc. So starting a new business is a really good opportunity to just try fresh things, really.
Yeah, it is. So how did you get like the cogs turning? Like because you said you had no clients, no work. What, like chicken and egg situation almost, isn't it?
Yeah. So it was a combination of, I guess, hard work, networking, getting out there, telling people about 360, you know, who we are, what we do, how we're different to the competition.
Did you ever do any cold calling?
No. Too busy doing all the other stuff, really. Social media was just becoming a thing for business in 2010.
Yeah.
So I think we were probably the first accountancy practice in East Yorkshire to go on Facebook.
Yeah.
And then I remember being on a course, a really boring course about tax or company law or something. And I remember thinking, I'm going to have a look at this Twitter thing. So I sort of downloaded would it have been an app back in 2010?
Yeah, it would have been.
Anyway,
Yeah,
I
that
got
was
it
like
up
the
on,
start of the iPhone. I can't remember when the iPhone came out, but it was before then.
Yeah. So anyway, by the end of the course, I'd set up a Twitter page a Twitter account for 360. Probably the first firm in East Yorkshire to have a Twitter account.
Which again is a competitive advantage back then. Whilst now it seems like an obvious thing is to have social media accounts for your business. It's almost not even an obvious. It's almost like so you have to do it really, otherwise you're falling behind everyone else. Whilst it's the opposite this time, and it was like, how can I get ahead?
Yeah. So ultimately, it was down to doing a really good job for our customers, clients, them recommending us to people that they know, and just growing on the back of word of mouth, really. We were one of the first accountancy practices to build our own app.
Yeah.
So we got a lot of good publicity and sort of feedback on the back of that. There weren't many accountants in and around Melton. So we were pulling a lot of business from the villages and towns nearby.
Yeah.
It was the sort of early days of people using websites to win business, etc. What we were noticing was we're winning a lot of business from Melton and the surrounding villages, but we weren't getting that much from Hull.
Yeah.
Because people were Googling accountants in Hull, and whilst we weren't appearing on the map because we were in Melton. So I guess the tendency is to click on the first business that is on the list, but also on the map. That all changed when we relocated to Hull.
Yeah.
So it was just hard work, being innovative, giving solutions to our clients that they weren't being told about by the competition. And I think also the fact that we'd been through the process of starting up in business ourselves, knew how challenging it was winning your first few customers, setting up new IT systems, etc. That resonated with a lot of business owners, particularly startups.
Yeah.
So back in the early days, we were attracting a lot of startups who liked what we'd done and sort of wanted to learn from learn from the things that we'd done well and had been successful with, but also, what had not worked, perhaps most importantly.
Yeah.
And back then we were trying to help the clients to avoid the mistakes that us as a startup had made.
What type of mistakes were there as a startup?
Oh, well, I mean, where do you start?
Just on the startup side for now.
I suppose trying to do a bit of everything.
Yeah.
So rather than focusing on what our core competencies are and what are we really good at, perhaps if a client or a potential client came along and said, "Oh, can you do A, B, C?" Perhaps took the Richard Branson approach of saying yes and then going away and finding out how to do it.
Right.
Some bad recruitment decisions back in the early days. As a startup, it's sometimes difficult to attract really good, experienced people because it's a bit of a gamble moving to a startup with no sort of history, etc.
And startups don't usually have a massive load of money in the bank and can take financial risk to take on maybe pricier people as well.
Yeah. So I guess recruitment mistakes, retention mistakes, which is perhaps even worse than, keeping hold of someone who isn't working out, is probably a bigger mistake.
I can relate to that. Yeah.
Than hiring the wrong person in the first place.
But you don't. once you don't really know about that until that's happened there. You get a certain kind of quite, sounds dramatic, but I don't think it is, quite poisonous person within your business can affect the whole team
Yeah.
and really drag it all down, really. It
Yeah.
can be a bit of a nightmare.
Yeah. I mean, you sort of asked me to list the mistakes that I've made, and all the ones that spring to mind are bad recruitment decisions and bad retention decisions, because it's so painful. It does impact on all of the team. Some people that don't work out leave really easily, whereas some people sort of kick and scream a little bit, and that can also be really painful and tiring and
that's really stressful.
Yeah, demotivating.
Yeah, it is demotivating. I can relate to all of those things.
And the people are the most important part of your business, aren't they? You know, if you buy a bad bit of software, you just stop using it and find a better one, don't you?
They are in a service-led, like in our industries, we're marketing your accountancy. We're basically, I mean, you've been our accountant for 11 years, so we're buying into you as people.
Yeah. So it's getting the right people is vital. And I suppose you learn from your mistakes, don't you? And I think interviewing and recruiting the right people does get easier with experience, but you've sometimes got to make some mistakes to gain that experience and for your gut instinct to be correct more often than not.
Yeah, and being more decisive with that gut instinct and not letting things kind of fester, I think has been, for me anyway, important. So you started off here in Melton, and you had, how many people did you have in the office around here?
So I think we'd probably grown to about 12 or 13 people.
Because you had two. I remember you had two offices, didn't you, with the door in the middle?
Yeah, we had two offices, and then I had an office on the other side of the corridor, and then we had a meeting room.
The meeting room, yeah.
Serviced offices are great as a startup because it's usually easy in, easy out. You know, if you need a bigger space, there's often a bigger room that you can move into.
Yeah, they can accommodate.
If you, on the flip side, if you have to contract, there's usually a smaller room cheaper room you can move into. And in terms of a business that's sort of finding its feet and just finding how big it can get in the first few years, serviced offices are perfect. The last thing you want to do is commit to a 5, 6, 10-year lease, and after a year realising actually it's either too small or too big. So, you know, a monthly licence, like, I don't know if it still is here, but it was when I was here, is perfect, really.
It's not. It's not now.
But as with most things in business, there's pros and cons, isn't there? So the biggest con to us of the serviced office provision is you can't really put your own stamp on.
Yeah.
You can put your own stamp to a certain extent on the offices that you're utilising, but certainly in reception. And
the rest of the building you can't do anything about.
Yeah, there was a receptionist back then, and you sort of didn't have any control about the receptionist and how they greeted your clients or potential clients. So, and also you know the appearance of the building, you don't really have much say over that. So yeah, once we'd got to 12-ish people, we sort of realised we'd outgrown the serviced office provision, and we started to look for our own offices. You know, we had a wish list of things that our offices needed to have, geographical location, etc.
Yeah.
And funnily enough, one of the tenants here that we were doing some work with knew that we were looking for our own offices to buy, and I think it was his father-in-law was just about to put his offices in the city centre on the market. So he sort of put the two of us together. We went and had a look, and they were, well, we thought they were perfect.
Yeah.
Grade 2 listed building. He'd been renting it out to a drug alcohol advisory service.
Yeah.
Who had unfortunately their funding had come to an end, so they needed to sort of terminate the lease. So you had an empty building. It was a bit of a mess. It was very clinical, loads of sort of CCTV, panic alarms, etc. So it was pretty cheap, which meant we could afford it. Needed a lot of work doing to it, but it had a massive car park, which for the city centre is fairly uncommon.
Yeah.
We saw loads of amazing spaces, but they'd have maybe one parking spot or two, or they had parking for 10, but it was on the other side of the city centre or whatever. So these offices ticked a lot of boxes.
And how did you get to the office stage? Was it just like you obviously needed to expand? So were you in a position it's like, well, we either stay here and we get more rented, or what was the kind of the reason I want to get 360 an office? Like obviously financially it's important, isn't it? You need to have money to spend on that.
I don't like paying rent.
Yeah.
So I don't like paying someone else's mortgage for starters. I wanted somewhere that we could put our stamp on.
Yeah.
I wanted the greeting that clients or potential clients, suppliers had. I wanted it to be professional and 360-ish.
Yeah.
If that's a word.
Yeah. I think as far as marketing goes, you've always taken it really seriously, and that come like the purple branding, and I think that's quite memorable. So I think to then follow that through within the building was important, wasn't it?
Yeah. And I did want to be back in Hull city centre. I spent most of my working life in Hull city centre.
Yeah. You're a city guy, aren't you?
Yeah, I'm a
cities.
City as in city centre, and also the football team, which is perhaps what you're hinting at. But no, I'm very proud of Hull and its history, and I think a vibrant city centre is really important for the region. So yeah, I wanted to invest in Hull city centre. I wanted our team to be working there, socialising there, spending money there. So yeah, we moved in there 2015, I think it was. Possibly it might have been 2016, just before Hull was the city of culture.
Yeah.
So it was a great time to be opening an office with all the exciting things that was going on in Hull city centre, all the money that was getting spent on the infrastructure, all the theatres, the new music arena, which I know you're heavily involved in and a big fan of. So it was really exciting times in Hull city centre. As the building was in such a state, it took about a year for
I remember
for us to sort of get the planning permission for the changes we wanted to make inside the building, listed buildings. So there was a lot of hoops to jump through, and then sort of finding a builder, an architect, doing the work. And by the time we were actually ready to move in, I think we'd probably grown to maybe 15 or 16 people. But also we needed a receptionist, we needed someone to answer the phones, etc. So we moved in on day one and we were sort of full. So it was like thinking, oh no, next time someone new starts, where are they going to sit? Type thing.
So what did you do about that?
So I guess that's you can add that to the mistake list. So what we did was we converted the loft into an office.
Right.
So I don't know, maybe we'd been in 6 months and the builders are back in, creating loads of dust and noise, and maybe we should have done that before we moved in, type thing. But
easier said in hindsight.
Yeah. So yeah, converted the loft. That created space for another 4 people. So for about 12 months we were fine, but then we've run out of space again. What do we do? So we actually opened an office at Craven Park in East Hull. So back down the serviced office route. We had some of the team that lived sort of east of Hull. So and they were all in the same department. So we moved the department to Craven Park. So that sort of solved the space issue for a few months. But then what we noticed was the communication between that department and the rest of the team sort of fell off a cliff. We had people that were starting, going straight to Craven Park, didn't really know the rest of the team, etc.
Did it become a little bit like there was a barrier between both of the teams?
Yeah,
because of
it was more than a little bit. It was a lot.
It's a large barrier.
Yeah. And this was before the time of sort of Teams and video calling.
It's before
and stuff
COVID,
as
wasn't
well.
it? Before the remote work took off.
Yeah. So we solved that by just rotating teams. So I think we started off with the personal tax team at Craven Park.
Right.
Then we moved our outsourcing team there, and then we might have moved another team. And then we heard that next door was about to go on the market. It was
for anyone that hadn't seen your offices, they're kind of like terraced, really tall, nice, pretty.
The Georgian townhouses.
You wouldn't really imagine them to be an office, but when you walk into it, you've done it out like really modern, and it's really nice, and all the offices are really nice. But it's really like it's a really unique office space, isn't it? So then you had one, and then you were looking at next door, townhouse.
Yeah, so very tall, skinny buildings, which does create issues. But yeah, so we heard that next door was going on the market, and it was probably, in an ideal world, we would have waited 2 or 3 years because we were still, we're still paying off the refurb of 19 Albion Street. So cash was a little bit tight. So in an ideal world, we would have waited 2 or 3 years, but who knows when it's going to come up on the market again? It
might not have ever come up.
It could be 100 years.
That was an opportunity.
So we just had to grab it and hustle, as you often do as a startup, just juggle things about a little bit.
Yeah.
So we bought next door, and it was perfect timing because within a few weeks of buying next door, floodlight at Craven Park fell down. I don't know if you remember that.
Yeah, I do remember it. Yeah.
It blew down in a storm. Thankfully, nobody was around when it happened. Thankfully, it fell on the pitch and not on the offices.
Yeah.
So we had to vacate Craven Park. Everybody had to leave Craven Park until they worked out whether or not the other floodlights were safe.
Right.
So everyone came back to Albion Street. We had people working in the kitchen. People like sharing desks, etc. We thought, that'd be a few days, but a few days turned into a few weeks.
Yeah.
And they couldn't tell us when we'd be allowed back, so we rented some space in a nearby serviced office.
Yeah.
And just said to the builders at the new Albion Street building, look, can you just speed up a little bit because we need to get these people. So as every floor was finished, we were moving people from the serviced offices into the new building. And then when Craven Park did reopen, we didn't need the space anymore. So we've now got the 2 buildings in Hull City Centre. Unfortunately, the conservation officer in charge of the second building wasn't quite as understanding and flexible as the conservation officer that we had for the first building.
Right.
So we had planned to knock through and turn the 2 ground floors into client-facing space.
Yeah.
But he wouldn't let us do that because it meant moving a couple of stairs at the bottom of the flight of stairs in the new building, and he didn't want us to touch those. So we couldn't knock through, which was really, really frustrating. Another lesson learned.
Yeah.
I'd assumed
you just could.
We'd be able to.
Yeah.
Because the first guy let us do pretty much anything we wanted as long as we left the outside. So yeah, do your research, I guess, is the lesson to be learned from that.
But now you've got...
Or don't buy a listed building.
Yeah. But now you've got this space, and is it still kind of, do you still see that as the future 360, or do you
No. So like many businesses, we want to reduce our carbon footprint. We want to be carbon neutral. To do that at Albion Street, we need to put solar panels on the roof. They won't let us do that. We need to change all the windows. They won't let us do that.
So they won't
really
let you do things that are basically environmentally friendly, but
no. So we actually had an audit from Hull City Council. Do free audits where they'll come into your office, do a full review of your carbon footprint, and show you ways of saving energy, reducing your carbon footprint, etc. It's an amazing service. I can thoroughly recommend it. It's free. They came away with all these proposals, and the only one we're allowed to do is changing the light bulbs to LEDs. There's a at some point we're going to have to make a decision. Do we want pretty buildings or do we want dry feet?
Yeah.
Because at the moment there's a massive conflict between listed building status and going environmentally friendly. Wouldn't it be great? Because Hull City Council have these really big plans to become the first carbon neutral city. In order to do, there's a lot of listed buildings in Hull, I think, that are used commercially. I think if they want to do that, they're going to have to do something a little bit innovative and a little bit different around allowing the owners of listed buildings to do things that they can't in other places.
Yeah.
I don't know whether these rules are national rules or whether they're local, etc. So I don't know how easy that's going to be, but somebody's going to have to start campaigning for things to change.
I suppose it's the wider issue of changing things for the. There needs to be change across the board, doesn't they? For the environmental and sustainability and climate change and stuff like that, and I think that does affect everything to some degree. And I think this is another thing that is another conflict and another kind of churn in that. So I suppose that brings us up to where you are now. And you've been doing it for 14 years?
Yeah, it was our 14th birthday on the 1st of February.
So, over those 14 years, what do you think we've covered the mistakes. Like, what are your top, and I mean worst 3 mistakes? Do you think, it's not specifics, but, so we covered like recruiting the wrong people or retaining the wrong people, is that?
Retaining them for too long.
Retaining for too long?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hoping things will get better.
Yeah.
When they usually don't.
Yeah.
They do sometimes, but not often enough to
I would agree
justify
with that.
it.
My experience is that as well. What do you think? What would the third one be in you?
See, I'm teetering on saying buying a listed building.
Yeah. And is that because you're locked in? You kind of financially locked into that, and now if you want to get rid of it, you then got to sell it, and you've put so much time and effort into it.
See, it's a tough one because I love the buildings; they're amazing, but they're not very practical for offices. As you said, they're really tall and skinny. So a lot of the floor space is taken up with stairs.
Yeah, and they look great.
You can't work on stairs.
No.
And any client, you can, but you wouldn't be very productive.
No, you'd probably do your dangerous. Yeah.
So where was I going with that? So the
mistake. Is it a mistake?
Yeah. So and also, our office is a little bit like rabbit warrens, so there's loads of little rooms dotted all over the place. And actually, during COVID, that was a godsend. When we were all having to social distancing,
yeah, you could easily do that. Yeah,
forming pods, coming into the office one day a week, etc. The fact that if you want to go from 19 Albion Street to 18 Albion Street, unless you're in the basement, which we were allowed to knock through, you've got to go out into the street.
Yeah.
So during COVID, when we were all the different teams and pods were keeping separate, you only ever bumped into anybody from the building next door in the car park. So it was absolutely perfect during COVID. But now we're trying to get everyone to collaborate and work together and have these chats over the water cooler, etc.
It's not ideal.
It's not ideal.
No.
But so our forever home will be a modern open plan office with plenty of parking, all loads of technology, IT, etc.
Yeah.
A place where people come to collaborate and work together, etc. But which is a complete opposite to the offices we've got at the moment. But we couldn't afford somewhere like that back in 2015. So
so needs must. Yeah, you do what you can only do how much you can afford, can't you? You don't want to stretch yourself too much, because that's when the bridge kind of collapses if you ever commit.
Yeah. So yeah, some days I hate my office, and I would definitely say it's one of my top 3 mistakes. Whereas other days when I'm sort of sat there at 5:30 on an evening when everyone's gone home, just sort of looking at how beautiful it is, I sort of think, well, this is completely different to all of the other, or many of the other professional services offices in the city, and it's a way of sort of standing out from the crowd. So
now we've talked about mistakes.
Yeah.
Let's flip it more positively. What do you think? And I feel like this is quite difficult as a business owner to look at things that you've done well. But what would be like 3 top tips of advice, or from your perspective of what do you think, things that you think, yeah, if I was to do this all over again, I would do that, and I would probably do it faster, or that type of thing. If someone's setting up a business, what do you think that you've done well and they want to grow their business? What have you done that you feel has worked?
I think we've grown and built our business on the back of our apprenticeship program.
Yeah. So investing in young people and apprentices.
Yeah. So our latest appointment to the board of directors, Sophie, she was our first apprentice.
Yeah. I remember meeting Sophie when I just set up my business, and I was doing like speed networking, those weird like speed dating things where it's not speed dating, it's speed networking. And I remember meeting Sophie then, and she's working 360, and I was like, oh yeah. You guys are our accountants.
Yeah. Well, so we encourage our apprentices to do things like that from a very early stage of the career.
Yeah. Apprentices are quite difficult to keep there, because often they'll start their career and then they'll want to, because they're young, they want to kind of, not everyone, but some people want to crack on and move to Leeds or whatever, or do something completely different.
Yeah. So you're never going to keep hold of all of your apprentices.
No.
You don't want to, because they're not all perfect for you.
Yeah.
Depending on how many apprentices you bring into your business each year, you might not be able to grow quickly enough to give them the job that they want once their apprenticeship has finished. But apprentices are great because you can sort of shape and model them into exactly what it is that you're looking for. You can give them the skills and experiences that you need, give them all the training, etc. And they appreciate the investment that you make.
Yeah.
And as long as you can give them opportunities in the future, I think there are, and as long as your apprenticeship program is well thought out and you've got people in your business that can commit the time to train them, mentor them, etc. I think as long as you do it well, the retention rate amongst apprentices would probably be better than it is from external appointments.
Yes.
And finding good apprentices is tough.
Yep.
It takes a lot of time and effort and energy, and you've got to this sounds really wrong, but hang around in places that young people hang around in. So, go to the schools, go to careers events, hold career events in your business. We had a careers evening back in February where I think about 20 people came along to, and I think at least 10 of those applied for the apprenticeship position that we're trying to fill right now.
Yeah. It's being relevant to that different type of career.
Yeah. Talk to the local schools, colleges, etc. Find out how you can get involved in their activities. Locally, we've got just across the road, We've got South Hunsley School
Yeah.
that have an employer-led program where they get employers in to talk to their students, give them career advice, etc. And you know, we've had loads of apprentices over the years from our connections with South Hunsley.
Yeah.
Olivia, who became a qualified accountant this week, found out on Monday that she'd finished a ACCA exam successfully. She was an apprentice and she joined us from South Hunsley as an 18-year-old.
It's great. It's really good.
So yeah,
it's good for everyone, isn't it? Ultimately, if it works out well, and they usually do work out.
Yeah, it's hard work finding apprentices, and it's hard work training apprentices.
Yeah,
but I think the effort is more than worth it.
Okay, so that's one. Two of the top business tips.
I think, I don't know if this is a tip or just stating the obvious, but I guess 18, 24 months ago, we'd grown. There was 30 of us.
Yeah,
coming out of COVID.
That's crazy, isn't it? 30 team members.
But we realised we were perhaps being busy fools. So we had a lot of clients that weren't value aligned. They didn't really appreciate the time and effort that we were spending with them.
And were they causing you problems? Or
Yeah. We were doing some unprofitable services. We were doing some services that nobody enjoyed doing.
Yeah.
And I think if you don't enjoy doing something, you're not going to do it well.
I completely agree.
So yeah, we had a good look at the business, and there was a number of services we decided to stop providing.
Yeah.
A number of clients we decided we didn't want to work with anymore.
Yeah.
A few tweaks to our sort of business model in terms of invoicing, payment terms, etc. So we sort of, partly through natural wastage, partly through some really difficult decisions, we downsized to sort of 20 people.
Yeah.
But we've now got a really strong value aligned team.
Yes.
With value aligned clients who appreciate the work we do for them, don't sort of drop stuff in unexpectedly at the last minute and expect us to drop everything else.
It's a mutual relationship, isn't it? Often when you're delivering a service, even like from a marketing perspective, sometimes it's like, well, you're doing this service for us, then and then unrealistic expectations come into when really we're people as well, and we're just trying to do the best.
Yeah. So on the back of easing some clients out, our turnover dropped. The number of the team dropped, but we're all less busy and we're more profitable and cash flow's better, and
so more profit is the most important thing, though, isn't it? Ultimately, how much cash. Cash. Yeah, cash. The amount of money.
Cash is king.
Cash is king.
Yeah. I mean, it's all the stuff we're always telling our clients, but sometimes you don't do it yourself, do you?
Yeah.
So yeah, it's really important to just every now and again take a step back, look at what you're doing.
It's not all about how many people there are, how much turnover there is. That can be sometimes almost like an ego thing.
Shall I say it? Shall I say the little saying? Turnover is vanity, profit is sanity.
Yes.
Cash is king.
The cliche.
Yeah. Because not all
true cliche.
Not all profitable businesses are generating cash. You know, some businesses that fail are profitable.
Yeah. And why is that? Because they're not getting paid.
Well, either the credit control isn't good enough.
Yeah.
The credit terms are too lenient, or they're not invoicing quickly enough.
Yeah.
You know, if you make a 50 grand profit in a month, but you haven't got time to invoice your customers, you're going to run out of cash at some point, aren't you?
Yeah, God, yeah. When you put it like that, I feel like we've been through stuff like that before where we've been like, oh yeah, we'll get paid. But then if you don't send the invoice and you don't chase it up, then...
I think the question I get asked by my clients the most frequently is, well, if I've made X £1,000 profit, why have I got no cash?
Yeah.
That's when you turn to the balance sheet and sort of show them that the cash is tied up in customers that owe them money, equipment that they've bought, stock that they've bought and is sat on the shelves unsold, or work that they've started but not invoiced yet for whatever reason.
That is a real pitfall, isn't it? It can be like a creeping thing that all of a sudden it's like, shit,
Yeah.
got no money.
Yeah. There's all sorts of things you can do so you've got to, make sure that your business is properly funded, making sure that your bookkeeping systems are up to date and timely, and making sure you've got a proper credit control system that you stick to, and not being afraid to say to customers, can't do that bit of work for you because you still owe us from the work we did 3 months ago.
Yeah.
A lot of business owners are terrified of losing a customer.
Yes.
Because they chase money that they're owed.
Yes.
But is that really the sort of customer that you want?
I think it's a tough one because I've felt like that before with customers. Of feeling like bad for almost chasing money. Seems like it's cheeky when really the money is earned. I think one thing that helped me was taking me out of the situation.
Yeah.
And getting...
It's good having a credit controller.
Yeah.
To chase money.
So now we've got we had Vicky to start off, and now I've got Lucy, and she just manages that whole process. She does it really well. But also it's not, the relationship isn't me and the client. It's Lucy.
So if Lucy upsets somebody, you can always step in and say, Lucy's just doing
highly unlikely she's going to upset them.
Lucy's just doing a job.
Yeah,
and then you can make a decision. You can say, I'm sorry, don't bother paying me for another month.
Yeah.
Or you can say, actually, Lucy's right. We do need that money. Otherwise, we're not going to be able to. So, getting someone else to do it. And
also it's that level of professionalism as well. It's taking that immersion out of it. And it's like, look, no, we are a business. We need paying. Like, we've got staff.
Yeah.
So, yeah. Okay. Number 3. Top tip.
It's got to be look after yourself.
Yes.
There's no point building a successful, profitable, cash-rich business if you kill yourself.
God, Jesus Christ. I didn't expect you to say that. But no, there isn't. So if you're that miserable, or you don't get any holidays, or you don't get to see your family, or any of that shit.
Or your husband or wife leaves you because they never see you.
That is it. Yeah. That does happen, doesn't it? It does happen, and you see it. And no one ever talks about it because there's a lot of shame to do with that. But especially with business owners, because you're so in it, and you can lose sight of what is the point of what is the point in having a business if you don't? I don't, like, for me, I get it. Some people actually value their business higher than their family, and that's fine. That's their prerogative. But for me, my business is to work with my family life and to make sure that it supports that, not only on a financial level, but also on a flexible time level as well.
Yeah. But if you look after your personal health, physical and mental, and also you've got a happy home life because you're spending the right amount of time there, I think you're more likely to make good business decisions than if you're knackered. The doctor's once every couple of weeks with various ailments, and you're going home to a stressful home environment because your partner's kicking off that, you're getting home at 10 o'clock, eating your tea and then going straight to bed. So I think organising your working day so that you're able to leave at 5 o'clock. You're able to make the children's nativity plays, etc. I think that more than pays for itself.
Yeah.
And also committing the time to, go to the gym or do
Look after
whatever
things for
activities.
yourself. Yeah.
Really, really important. So I think you will get your business to where you want it to be much quicker and much more successfully if you stay healthy and fit.
And taking that time. Because sometimes when you're in business, well, it's just like, I just need to work. I just need to work. And I've done it loads, but now I feel, and I actually kind of almost force myself to take time away, because if I haven't, I've just made some really like bad decisions that have cost time, money, and stress. And what's the point? It just is the whole vicious cycle just repeats itself.
I've been really fortunate to work with some really successful entrepreneurs over the 34 years I've been an accountant. And I suppose the bit of advice that I hear most often from them is make sure you're looking after yourself, but also make sure you're spending enough time with your loved ones. Nobody ever says, when they retire or sell the business or whatever, they never say, I wish I'd spent less time with my family. Ever. You never hear that. Whereas a lot of them say, I've been really successful, but I just wish in the early days or whatever, I'd just spent a little bit more time with.
Is that something that people actually say to you?
Yeah.
Like later on when,
Yeah. So, they'll say to them, don't make the same mistake I've made.
Yeah.
Make sure you're going home at 5 o'clock.
And is that because it's actually it's really negatively impacted their lives?
Yeah. They regret that they haven't seen the children growing up.
Fuck.
They've been sat in the office or the factory or whatever until 8, 9 o'clock each evening.
Shit, man, yeah. That is quite tough, I think, to come to that realisation, isn't it? For when you come to the end of it and you realise that, has it been worth it?
Yeah. At the risk of taking it down a little bit, I just wonder what the divorce rate is for business owners compared with non-business owners. I imagine it's pretty high.
I think with a business, a business is almost like having a child to some degree, isn't it? Because you've got to kind of nurture it and put time into it in order for it to flourish. And when you have a child or you've got a family as well, like you also need to do that. So you need to somehow find that balance.
I think it's important to make sure that your actual child is your favourite child and not your business child.
I think that's good. Yeah, I think that's probably a good way to go. That your actual children are more prioritised than your business children.
Yeah.
But like in comparison to like when you've got a job, I suppose it's easy to take a mental step back from that because there's less responsibility, and not discounting people who have like very highly responsible jobs, but it's not like if I don't do this, then the whole thing just fucking collapses. And then because then you, especially as a man as well, I'd say as a male, then you're still in a modern day society, a woman, especially in maternity, takes 9 months off, and you still got this weird, I'm going to work, but I also need to look after the baby, and I think there's blurred lines there, and it becomes difficult to find your way.
Yeah, I think if you're the owner of a business and there's something that needs to get done at 8 o'clock on an evening, otherwise the business is going to collapse, I think if you sit back and look at it or talk to someone about it, there's probably something you can change within the business to make sure that isn't the case.
Yeah. Sometimes things happen, don't they? But I think generally you want to try and stop the likeliness of that type of thing from happening.
Yeah.
It's
all about prioritising, delegating.
Yeah.
Focusing on the things that you're good at and not interfering with the stuff you're not good at. Building a layer of managers underneath you to do stuff so that you can just
help.
concentrate on working on the business rather than in it.
Yeah.
There's always going to be times when a business owner has to stay back till late on an evening because something's happened, and but yeah, it shouldn't be happening every day, should it?
No. I think I struggled when we had Ellis from, well, it's like nearly 6 years ago now. And like 0 to 6 months, I struggled with the transition of, because it was just me and Tony to start off with. You still got a relationship, and your business, like anyone who's married or in a relationship, that is quite. You've still got to manage that time and put time into your relationship as well. And you throw a child in that mix, then I really struggled because it was like, right, I need to go to work to obviously provide for my family, which is quite an old school way of looking at it, but that's the way that I thought. But I also need to be present mentally, and I found that really difficult to transition to. But now I'm out the end of it. I feel like now me and Tony have both worked that out by us having conversations and me changing it's just a little thing, like a priority in my head that just went, why am I stressing and going in at that time when I can just go in at like half an hour later or something, rather than having to constant.
Yeah. I think business owners, they hate having a to-do list, don't they? A lot of business owners are a little bit OCD, and they hate having a list of things that they haven't quite managed to achieve that day, and they feel like they've failed if they haven't done it all.
There is that, yeah.
I think it's really important to sort of learn that you're never going to get everything done.
Well, the list just carries on.
You've just got to focus on the important things.
Yeah, yeah.
And that stuff that you haven't got done by 5 o'clock, is the world really going to end if you go home now and do it tomorrow?
No. I think the more that you can get used to and feel comfortable with that uncomfortableness, then the better you become at being in a business, because then your decision making is better.
Yeah. I just thought of another top tip, actually.
4?
Yeah.
Hitting the 4th top tip. Okay.
So
we'll end on this one.
And this is to help with work-life balance.
Yeah.
So 2 phones.
Yeah.
A personal phone and a work phone.
Mm.
Only give your personal phone number to people that you don't mind contacting you on a Saturday and a Sunday, or an evening. So basically your family and friends
and family, yeah.
And leave your work phone at work on an evening. Or if you're working from home, turn it off at 5 o'clock and just leave it. Don't be checking your work emails.
No. I'm not quite that. I've turned off my email notifications on my phone, because that was just silly. Because I'd look at something at 9 p.m. It's like, what am I going to do about that now? And then I'm thinking, I need to do something about it. And then you're constantly thinking about it, aren't you? Yeah.
So if you've only got one phone, and it's so easy for people to contact you nowadays, isn't it? WhatsApp, text messages, social media, email, ringing the number.
Yeah.
There's so many ways they can contact you. So I was finding that it'd be a weekend, and a friend had send me a text message, so I'd look at the text, but then I'd see the text from a client underneath it.
Yeah.
And you just can't resist clicking on it, can you?
Completely.
And seeing what it says.
Yeah.
And
sometimes I'm like, I open my emails on a weekend, I'm like, I hope it doesn't open my work one.
And if it's a good text message, so-and-so's done, I just wanted to let you know that so-and-so's done an amazing job. I'm so happy, blah, blah, blah.
But if it's a bad
then
one,
you actually, and it sort of enhances your weekend. But if it's a bad one, I really need this doing by...
There's more bad ones than good ones
9:30 on Monday morning.
You're
sort of thinking, I need to deal with that. And it just... It detracts from your weekend, doesn't it?
Yeah, it's like holidays as well. It's like not...
So having 2 phones and being strict with it has really helped my work-life balance.
Yeah. You feel like you're happier at work and at home because of it.
Yeah. And only certain members of the team have the personal phone number.
Yeah, I think that's reasonable,
if someone from the team wants to contact me when I'm on holiday, for example, they have to go through a senior member of the team that's got my phone number, and then they can decide whether or not it is actually an emergency and we do need to interrupt.
So you've got some gatekeepers there.
Yeah. So yeah, I think work-life balance is important for everybody, but for business owners, it's particularly important.
Yeah.
Because the potential for work taking over your entire life is huge, isn't it? If you're not careful, if you don't put things in place to stop it from happening.
I can really relate to that because since I feel like I have genuinely got better at the work-life balance, our business is just getting I'm making way better decisions and we're just doing better and better and better. Yeah. So the proof is, for me, could be coincidental, but I don't think it is that improving my work-life balance and my boundaries has skyrocketed Superfly marketing, as well as my brother as well. So I completely agree. Cool. All right. Well, thanks, Andy. That was really good.
Thank you for having me. The time's flown by.
Yeah.
How long have we been talking?
Hour?
Yeah.
So yeah.
Thank you for having me.
No worries. Thank you. Whew.